Hello, good evening, good evening.
Good
Happy Friday
evening.
Eve.
Good evening.
We're excited. This is Medical Billers Network Live. We are excited to be back. It's been, oh my gosh, like 3, maybe even 4 weeks since we've been on. We've launched right into summer mode. So getting out and enjoying some heat. So today we're excited because I have a special guest with us this evening, Ms. Blanca Morales. Thank you so much for joining, Blanca.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you. I'm very honored for you to have chosen me to be your guest. So I
Yes,
appreciate that. Thank you.
such an honor. I know there's so many people in our community who are thrilled to have you here. And so I have some questions already from folks in the community. So I'm so excited. And if you are just joining, as you join, please make sure that you come into the comments and let us know that you're here. Tell us where you're joining from. And let us know one emoji to represent how your summer has been. And I will start us off. My emoji is like the face that's like got red at the top and sweat dripping down the side. It's been a little bit of a working summer for me.
Sure.
A lot of
Yes,
hard
I'm
work.
with you.
Yeah, you got the sweat.
Same
What's your
thing.
same
I
thing?
just have the dry heat. You have the humid heat, and I have the dry heat. But
Yeah. Oh,
yesterday was our hottest day here, 122.
oh my gosh. I don't even know what that is. Like that doesn't even register
Yeah.
for me. Like
Yeah,
doesn't even register
it's
for
so
me.
hot. And I like the heat. Don't get me wrong. I'm used to it, but it was just extremely hot. It's been extremely
Yeah.
hot.
I mean, like, I understand that it's one of those things you get used to because, hi, Christy, welcome. Yeah, I like your emoji, Christy. That's how I feel, just laying on a block of ice. I like it. Um, like I know I've went to Arizona and Nevada during like last summer. Actually, we were there in Nevada in Vegas and then out in Utah, and it's just like just unfathomable how hot it gets. Like it's like insane.
Yeah.
But we've been spoiled the last couple of days, almost the last 3 or 4 days. We've had dry heat already. That's because our seasons are kind of somewhat changing, but I also think it's because the storms that blew
The
through
storms,
here.
yeah, the monsoons.
Yeah, exactly. But for sure, it is like, sweaty, sticky, humid
Yeah.
air. So you want to share where you are in the world, Blanca?
Yes, I am actually in Calexico, California. I split my time. Half of my time during the week is in Calexico, and the other half is in San Diego.
Yes, so Southern Cali. Got
Southern
that
Cal.
nice southern heat.
Yeah, yeah.
The fire.
But it is nice when I'm driving up that mountain and I can feel like the coolness go down 30
Oh,
degrees.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's it. That was the thing that blew my mind. I had never been to, up until last year, I had never been to Utah before. It was such a beautiful, hi, Mary, welcome, welcome. Oh, yeah, Massachusetts, wet and warm. Yeah, sticky up there too. Sticky. Yeah, like the experience of getting to like leaving, even Vegas is very hot, but leaving Vegas and then just watching the thermostat go tick, 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 and it's just going up on the car. It's like, oh my gosh, it's 117 degrees or 113 or whatever. It was, my husband and I were like just completely like blown away by how much of a temperature difference, just even going from us where we were in our hotel. We went to Zion National Park where we were in our hotel to then going out to the park, which was just outside the hotel. It was like 10 degrees difference, 10 degrees warmer. I was like, oh my gosh, it can get worse. You mean it can get worse?
Yeah.
And then someone told us about this like reservoir that's on top of one of the mountains. So we went to this reservoir and it was like 2,000 feet, I think, in elevation, maybe 3,000 like that. And it was 35 degrees cooler.
Wow.
So 15 minutes up a mountain, and it's like insane.
That's how it is here. When you go up those mountains towards San Diego, it drops.
Yeah, sweet. Right, get back to the water over there.
Yeah, I know it.
So everybody who's just joining, if you didn't hear me on my introduction already, we are talking to Blanca Morales. She's with us today from SCPS, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. But as you join, tell us where you're joining from, pop into the comments, and we ask for today an emoji of how your summer is going. So Blanca, why don't you tell everybody who you are? Introduce yourself.
So yes, my name is Blanca Morales. I'm the CEO founder of Southern California Physician Services. I've been in business for 22 years. I started my business in Chula Vista, California, which is the county of San Diego. And I started back in 1999. I was working with a physician. I actually was an employee of Sharp Healthcare. And I met a physician who was needing some help in his billing, and he's a gastroenterologist, and he is still my client. And so he says to me, I don't want to be dealing with computers. It's Y2K. Because I shared with him that my goal was to own my own billing service. He goes, this is your opportunity. I have another doctor who's making some adjustments and changes in his practice. So that's how SCPS was born in February 1999.
Wow. Just a couple of years ago, huh?
Yeah, just a couple years ago, yeah.
Or you guys you're in that client, you're like, oh, we survived Y2K. So for sure enough, we'll survive COVID, right?
Yes, Y2K, ICD-10, now COVID.
Yes, oh my God.
It's just a constant changes, learning. And I love billing. When I actually am originally from Calexico. When I moved to San Diego in 1985, I decided to go to school for medical administrative assistant, and my favorite subject was insurance billing. And I don't know, I was able to retain the information because I'm not one of those A students. I have to study to retain information. And my son always makes fun of me. He says, if you ever want to have a conversation with my mother, talk about work. So yeah, I just, it was something that just interested me and motivated me to get up and get in there and learn it. Medical terminology, that was a little rough for me, but once I got the medical terminology down, and then I started learning the technical component of the actual claim forms. Back then, there was no computers. We had pegboards. Mm-hmm. And we had carbon copies. We didn't even have a copy machine.
And the patients were signing every claim, right?
Yes, they were. And their ledger, when they paid, here's your ledger, sign here, you made a payment, and they were in alphabetical order. So yeah, we worked with a lot of alphabetizers, but yeah, it was. But when the computers started to come on board, it was probably late 80s, the DOS systems, the green monitors. Yeah. I was just like ecstatic. I mean, that just like really brought me more into the job, into what now I'm going to be seeing things flow a lot easier for me. Then I was always about working smarter. So yeah.
I think that, I agree with you 100% about the computers and how if you embrace technology, it has a way of like loving you back. Instead of resisting it, because so many people, this, and especially when EHR came around and all that, people were very resistant. But the technology shift that has happened in healthcare, it's still shifting. We're still not touching this.
That's never going to change. Which is another thing that I loved, because I always thought if I go in, it was either banking or healthcare. And I said, healthcare will always be there because there'll always be sick people. And I'm a people person. Banking, I liked it because of collecting, counting money and collecting money. Mm-hmm. But I thought, no, I rather do the healthcare because, it's job security. And there is. You're not going to stay in one place for a long time, but you'll still be in healthcare.
Exactly. It'll shift and change and morph, but it'll still be the way that we affectionately call our world. The revenue cycle will still be the revenue cycle. We'll have some technology plugged in here and there. So, hey, Ashley, I don't know if I say this right. Is it Jim's Sana, I know I see you all the time, so I hope I'm saying that right. You should send me a DM and let me know if I'm saying that right. It's good to see you guys. And there's a couple other folks that commented that are on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, there should be some sort of like authorizing thing that lets me see your name. So I can't see your name. So hello from Albuquerque and Asheville, or hello to Albuquerque and Asheville. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what kind of led you to choosing to start the billing company specifically. Like, what was it? I know you said you were working with a facility at that time. So what led you to that move instead of continuing?
Well, I knew very early. I knew very early in life that I always wanted to be independent. I didn't like to deal with a lot of politics. I just wanted to get the work done. So, and I wanted flexibility. I was a single mom. And so when I was always working in an office for Sharp Healthcare, which is a large hospital system in San Diego, one of the largest ones, there were always way too many obstacles just to get one thing done. And so I thought, if I had the authority, I could just get it done a lot quicker. So that was just always my attitude. And of course, I always had attitude. That's I think made me a good collector, because I never would take no for an answer. So, and better ways of doing things, and just thinking outside of the box. And I think that that's what led me to be an entrepreneur. It's like, okay, if I have authority and I just deal with the doctors, I always worked really well with the doctors. I was also a trainer for Sharp Healthcare. I love teaching people and learning also from them. So that's, I think, what led me to open up. That's what led me to open up my own business.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, and you have to have that awareness early on that when you feel the nudge that you're not really meant to work for somebody else.
Right. Yeah.
You kind of know it. It's like
you do know it. Yeah. And there's pros and cons, but it's worth it.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of bittersweetness in there. So we all have those realizations when you're like, man, it would be so much easier if I just got a paycheck, and then you wake up and you're like, yeah, no, don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, and I actually did. It was when I first started the business, I was employed full time. I was actually doing consulting work, and I was working for a company, and then I would come home on the weekends, and that's where I would work the billing for two doctors. When I finally decided to stop traveling was because of 9/11, which will be 20 years this year. And when 9/11 happened, I was just done with the airports. I have to just stay home. You think about the choices that you're making. It was a lot of sacrifices. I would leave my family behind, and because there were goals that I needed to attain. I bought a house in San Diego, and so there was this business. I needed to start the business. I didn't have the capital, so I had to work full time. So when I was working full time and then working for myself, I always knew, like, well, if they fire me, I have my job to go to. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Right. Built your own job security.
Exactly. So yeah, that's how it went. I actually worked full time and my business. So I was working 7 days a week for a pretty long time. And until when they actually shut down the office in San Marcos, because I ended up getting a job there because I met this VP of a business office in Tucson who moved to San Diego. And she says to me, "You're going to quit traveling, come work with me." And so I went ahead and took the job with her because I loved working with her. She was just amazing, great energy, very intelligent, and she was a really good mentor. So I had the opportunity to be a director at that business office. We were also vendors. I've always been a vendor, one way, shape, or form. I've been a vendor once I left Sharp. So I was always the outsider. And until they shut down that business is what forced me to go into it full time. And so from once that was forced to go in there full time, I just grew.
Yeah.
And that was, something that when people now come to me and ask me, like, okay, I want to start my own business, but I also want to do this. Like, well, if you start your own business, you have to be in it 100% of the time. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah, there's a tipping point. where you
Yes.
have to choose to be all in. And you absolutely, we can dabble, you can do part-time. I know a lot of people who've done that for a long period and still do, they work for someone and they do maybe one client on, on the side, but that you have to understand that one thing really at some point is going to take from the other, especially if you're looking to try to grow that business. If you were fine with just doing that as a side gig is good, but you really have to lean into the tipping point and feel like you're going to go all in at some point.
Yep. And I was forced to do it because it's nice, like you said, getting a paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. And getting benefits. And I was like, oh, you're a little scared, but you have to say, okay, what do you really want? Do you really want to grow the business, or do you want to just keep having 2 to 3 doctors? And so, that's how it all started.
Love it. You guys are great here with the comments. So yeah, Ashley says, I've been feeling that way. Okay, staying home. I just want to do medical billing at home, not in the office. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell me, you guys, as you're here listening, what questions are coming to mind? I have some questions already that we've gotten from some folks in advance, but I'd love to take questions and have Blanca shed a little light on her experience. So so tell us a little about the SUPS story and some of the lessons you've learned, some gems, like some of the most valuable things that you've learned just over the years in having this business.
Well, for sure, when I was forced to go in at full time, discipline. You have to discipline your time. You have to make sure that you are 150% engaged with your clients. And your clients, they're your business. So a lot of times there's a lot of give and take. And ultimately, the client is the one that you have to constantly convince that they need you. And that's one thing that I really enjoyed working with the doctors, because the doctors went to medical school to be doctors. So my pitch was always, listen, you're the doctor, I'm the business person. And those doctors that engage with me and we gap that bridge are the ones that made it work and are still with me. Because when they want to be the doctor and the biller and the business person, it doesn't work, because it just doesn't work. So those are the things that I've learned, and not to ever give up. You're gonna have bad days, but you learn from them. I mean, there are times that I think, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? I should just go look for a job and it'll be okay. But regardless, whether you're working for someone or working for yourself, you still have to be 100% accountable. And so I think that the biggest lessons that I've learned in life is people, learning how to read people, and being a better people person, be a better listener, and be patient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, something you said earlier on about the clients. A lot of people think, oh, I'm, like we said earlier, working for yourself, but in truth, you are working for your client. Like and we now have multiple of them, and so you really have to keep that in under consideration. Where in one job, you might have an employer that says, okay, here's my expectation and I'm going to measure your performance. Well, now we have that with our clients. So you're constantly wanting to educate them on the performance, because a lot of them don't know, or they think they know what the measurement over performance in the revenue cycle is. But sometimes it requires more education so that they see the value that you bring to the table.
Correct. And that was another thing too, that I would always tell my clients, and I still to this day, that's your license. You didn't go to school for 13 years, 15 years. So I'm not only here to be your collector, your biller, but I'm here to take care of your license, because your success is my success. And we want to continue to move on with the business and grow the business.
Right.
My clients were always solo, single specialty providers. And so I started to let them know, look, you're more valuable in the OR. You're more valuable in the GI surgery center. Let's get some mid-levels in here so they can do some follow-ups. They can do some education on, dietitian. So I grew my clients. So instead of them, so they're spending more time where they're best happy, because they hated doing clinic. I'm like, okay, I get it. Let's get some mid-levels. And at first they were like, oh, no, I want to be the one seeing my patients. Okay. Then all of a sudden it became their idea. Great idea. Let's do it.
That is so true, though. Like many of them, like they need to be reminded, and it does need to be shown to them as if it was their idea. Like, like it's just the proving to them the value that you can bring to the table in different ways by just introducing new ideas to them and helping them to do more of what they're really passionate about. And sometimes people need to be reminded. And as you said earlier, there's some providers that, we've both had the experiences, as I know we've talked about in the past, that you have providers that come that they think they know everything. And so they think they know the billing, and it's fine. I want to have people that understand and respect what we do, because I feel like some people, think of it as this lower level commodity that is not of value. And so they're, constantly kind of making it not a great relationship. But I think in most cases, like if you have the right kind of relationship where you can be able to educate them, keep them seeing that value, keep their eyes open to, what's working in the practice. And then here's some opportunities like, hey, doc, I noticed you weren't doing these things that I've seen in the marketplace, in the other practices. This is some way that you can kind of start to diversify a little bit. Like you said, add more revenue, things that will help free you up. Like now you and I both have had clients for a long time, and, you see people go through burnout. Everybody does, at some point. And then providers, especially depending on their specialty, they can get burned out very quickly. And it's helpful to have someone like an outsider that can say, hey, doc, I know you want to see all your patients, but let's be real. Like you've been in this for 15 years, right? Like, or 20 years or whatever. You probably, you need to start thinking exit strategy.
And one thing about the doctors, all doctors, I've also learned that they don't trust just anybody. And I get it, they're paranoid. So you have to gain that. You work on gaining the trust, the respect. Once you're there and you find your rhythm, then you're in. And then you just grow from there together.
Keep developing. I love it. So Mary asked a really good question here. I'm going to pop your question up there, Mary. So what is the hardest client you had and how did you handle it?
Oh my goodness. I always handle it with a sense of humor. I do tell them, but I do it in a sense of humor. I did have a client that he was a cardiologist. He went on his own and he had a biller. It's actually the biller was diagnosed with breast cancer. So she was behind in billing. He ended up having the same system that I had. So it was easy for me to take on his billing because I copied the database into my server at the time. And when I had an in-house server, as he started to see the money that was coming in, he made over $1 million in 1 year. And he wanted more and he wanted more. And so he would have me in his office with his accountant till 8:00 at night, brainstorming on how we can make more money. And so I just would tell him, it's like, look, it is what it is. You're a one doctor practice. If you want more money, then you need to develop a group. And so he did. He hired an office manager, and then he gave me my 30-day notice. So I was collaborating with the office manager until they took the billing in-house because they saw how he was able to develop. And now he's a very successful doctor. But I started to see that he became greedy. I started to see that we didn't have the same mission and vision anymore. And it was okay. And I just pretty much, and the office manager, I ended up being really close friends. He first wanted us to not be close friends, but we ended up working out together because, you always know, he knows a lot of doctors in San Diego. The word's out. And, so you always just kind of want to humble yourself, transition the work. And it's okay because it actually was much healthier not having him as my client. But that's what you do. You just basically have to, kind of suck it up, transition it out. And then there's always plenty. And there were.
Right. I agree. I think that's the best advice there because so many of us, we get so stuck in our heads and we think the one experience defines all, where you think, well, this happened and he or she left. And, you start to think of that as the truth. And the reality is there are so many, like you guys, we've talked about this before. And this is like, we even have this space healthcare is so vast. Like in our country, it's just endless, endless.
Endless. One door closes, the other one will open. Plenty more will open. And that amount of time and energy that I was spending on that one doctor, okay, and which was not healthy because it was not a healthy relationship. It was best that we parted.
Right.
And I did it very professional. And he, he still says hi to me. I've come across him and we're good. But yeah, you just have to do it that way.
Right. You have to recognize that there's way more opportunity for you looking elsewhere, and he'll get what he wants and needs. And as you said, from someone else, and it's probably a much better fit.
Yes, there you go. Much better. Yeah, because it's a business relationship. It's like you have your husband, you have a relationship, that's what it is. You spend a lot of time with each other. So you might as well like each other, right? If you don't start liking your client, then it's just not going to work.
It's so true. And this is where, the blessing, Blanca, is at the beginning, right? I think, you probably experienced this too. I think moving into business where you start to feel like you have to say yes. Like you have to say, the doctor, they want you have to say yes. And the gift is, I think the opposite is recognizing, I don't have to say yes. This is my choice. Right. Or I don't have to keep them. I'm not happy. The relationship is not working, right? It's like there's a divorce for a reason, right?
Right. And that's what I would tell my clients. Are we getting a divorce? That's how I would say, okay, we're not, we agree to disagree. So are we going to get a divorce?
Are we going to get a divorce? Yeah, it's true. And it's there for us, like the opportunity, if we're not getting what we need, and you can have disagreements. And I think it's real that everyone should feel free to speak up when things are not working well in the relationship on both sides, right? Like on our side, on the client side. But at the end of the day, we want a happy working relationship because this is livelihood, right? This is the doctors are working in this full time. We are as well. If we want to have a really healthy working relationship, life is hard enough. We don't need to hate our people, our clients, and our vendors, from the client side.
Our families. So yeah. That's what you have to do. You have to recognize that because you have to show them that they have to respect you because number one, I'm a woman and these doctors are from other foreign countries, so women are not at their level. And number two, I'm a Latina woman, but they got to know my personality and I spoke up and they knew right away that I would speak up and I do have a choice. I can say no. And that's how I was from the get-go. I always make it very clear. I also made it very clear that I don't work with doctors' wives when they're in the practice. Because
we talked about that. I love that.
I'm the wife in the practice. The wife needs to stay home.
Yeah, it's true. It's interesting. And you guys probably are like, what? But the reality is like, and we've had this conversation before because just laughing about it because the most unhealthy relationship sometimes, and it has to be the right marriage because I've seen some work well, but sometimes the most unhealthy relationship is when wife is the manager, husband is the doctor, or flip-flop. Doctor is the wife, and flip-flop it. It's when they have that dynamic, somehow the relationship gets challenging, and because you have people that are both invested in the practice in that way, somehow it becomes an emotional thing, just like a personal life, your own personal financial life echoes into the practice. And now you've got this strain unnecessarily. I constantly see the turnover in the practices with people because they don't know how to work their relationship into the practice. So you
can't. Honestly, I'm not going to have my husband working with me. I mean, I have my son working with me. Sometimes I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do with this kid? Because you tend to bring your personal emotions into the business and you're like, okay, I need to slow down here. And that's the same thing with the wife and the doctor. And it's super personal, super territorial, and it's just not going to work. So that's another lesson that I've learned. It's like and I ask them, is your wife, because the wife will call me because they're interested in a billing company. And I will ask, are you part of the practice?
Yeah, no.
Because I don't work with doctors that the wives are part of the practice.
I love it. You lay down the law.
Yeah, I don't want to waste their time, my time, because it just doesn't work.
Right, and you've had enough experience that it tells you, like it. And we all have that. I think after you've been in business long enough, you have your non-negotiables that you can lay out. You're like, yeah, I know that I cannot, like mine right now is I cannot work with brand new providers. Like I just don't have, I don't have I don't have the bandwidth personally, and my team doesn't want to do all of the extra work to say, I need to kind of help you form your business. It's helping people learn how to be business owners. And some of them are just not ready for it. And we've had that. And I've said yes a few times because they say, after I made my non-negotiables, and then after the fact, I've gone back on it. And every time I'm like, I should have stuck to it. So now I have a partner that I send them to. I'm like, hey, it's Renee. Actually, those of you who listen to the podcast, it's Renee. I'm like, Renee, this is a startup. They need your help because he's good at the hand holding. Me, I'm like, I don't want to have to try to teach you how to be a business person. Like that's stuff that you got to learn on your own.
Exactly. And you hit the nail on the head. You have to handhold. Already you have to handhold the doctors that have been in practice for a long time. That never stops, right? Mm-hmm. And I always say to myself, there's a reason why I only had one child, because I have to take care of these doctors because they're my children. They're my boys, and you have to handhold them. But the new ones, and we're already have a lot going on because we've already grown, right? We're now in a position where, yes, we can say yes and we can say no, but it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of energy. And the one thing that I do want to say about the younger doctors is that they're very engaged with technology. Mm-hmm. That is a good thing, right? Because they're engaged with technology. They seem to be very efficient, but then there's some of them that even don't want to deal with that. So, I get it.
I've seen that too. We have a couple of really good questions coming in. So Facebook user, I don't see your name. Sorry. So she says she says they've got one client and they're paying him $10.99 right now. They want to move the contract now that she's got an EIN. Any advice in the uncomfortable conversation? So moving from an hourly $10.99 to a contract.
I mean, I think that's a good thing. I think that you're a corporation now, right? Because now your corporation is going to be responsible for your business. Mm-hmm. And I think that the conversation that I would have with the client is that you're now developing a structure. You're structuring your billing service. And now you have a corporation, and now you can give them your W-2 or W-9.
W-9, yeah.
That's how I tell them.
I agree. And I think, the structure is there to protect them as well. Right. So I would say now that I'm a formal business, I can offer a little bit more protection because I could get some insurances. I can, there are things I think that you can kind of spin it to sell it in a way that says that I'm really looking out for you, Doc. This is something that is going to be a better thing versus me as an individual. Now you can trust, that I'll have maybe some errors and omissions insurance or, that'll, So I think totally spin it and it's all for them.
Exactly. Protection. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good question.
Love it. So Mary, celebrating you. You fired 2 clients. It's a gift. It's a gift being able to say, I like you, but it's our time has ended, my friend.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Doctors' drives can be a real problem. I love it, Jim. So yeah. Let's see. They never stay once you get them up and running. I wouldn't say never. I'm going to say this. It really just takes, again, like that consistent education. And there will be, when they're younger practices, like they have to understand the importance of having experts in the function. Because there are a lot of practitioners that they just look at the bottom line number and they're like, oh, I can hire, somebody off the street that can do all my stuff, my scheduling, my office managing, my payroll, my errands when I want them done, and my billing. Like they're looking at just trying to pay one. And then at some point they'll get to a more mature experience where they'll say, okay, I need someone who is actually going to be focused only on collecting my money and making sure that I can track that performance effectively instead of someone who's got all this shared responsibility. But that just takes some, maturity, as a business owner for the practice.
And the ones that aren't going to stay with you once you have them up and running, there's a reason. You don't want that type of client anyways, because there's no sense of loyalty. So you already know that it's probably best that they did leave. But if you really want them to stay longer, you can always put that in your contract. And if they don't fight the contract, then they're going to be your longevity clients. But if they're going to fight your contract, then you already know that they're going to leave once you have them up and running. So that's one way also of knowing in the very beginning when you give them a proposal and a contract at the same time, because I do it at the same time. Because I don't want to come back and do I don't want to do another meeting. Hey, we're going to either do it or we're not going to do it. So that's how I would do it. That's how I've done it. Because I learned the same thing, like that one cardiologist, I had him up and running, and then he's like, gives me a 2-week notice as if I'm an employee, and we had a contract.
I love it. Yeah, it's so gift. You guys, you'll laugh at this, but my cat has figured out how to open the door. So I have to put a stopper in my sliding door because she slides the door open.
Oh, my German Shepherd does that. Oh my God.
I'm like, yeah, I try to keep her out. She's like, we're coming in here because she'll climb up on the desk and be on the camera. So Rachel Dawn Vega. Hey, Rachel. Rachel Dawn. Very nice name. I like it. So I like it. Mary says, so they wanted me to do everything but billing for free. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much
that client.
Yep.
You have to give yourself your respect and your sense of value right away.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Lay down the law too, and make sure they understand what it is that what it is that you deliver and what services you offer from day one. So
expectations, it works both ways. And if they're going to fight you on it, then that's not going to be a good client.
Really not. I love it. We talked about experts. So tell us about what it means when you say expert, and how would someone who's in billing, either just learning or wanting to kind of augment what they currently do, what would you suggest is like the most important thing to be able to kind of qualify themselves as an expert? How would someone go about becoming an expert?
I think that number one, you have to love your job. Okay. You have to I love to do medical billing. Identify that already. What is it that you like about medical billing? Do you like to be the data entry person? Do you like to be the one that's analyzing and researching? Because I used to always call myself the private investigator, and I love researching and finding money and finding problems because I'm going to have a solution and I'm going to look great, right? So I think that's how you will know, what part of a medical billing or medical biller do you like? There's a payment poster, there's the actual biller. Are you certified if you really like the coding and abstracting medical records and working directly with the doctor on educating on how to code, how to get reimbursed? Those are your coders. And then you have your collectors that want to be on the phone dialing for dollars. And then you have the ones that are in government that are in there looking at why the government isn't processing those claims and understanding the rules and regulations of the state and the federal. And those, once you learn those, that's my favorite because it's either black and white. Then you put them in there and you get the cash in the door in 7 days or 14 days.
Yeah, such a gift, right? I mean, like, it's interesting. A lot of people shy away from government payers, but I think it's because it's the only thing that we can say is black and white. Like, if your claim didn't get paid, there's a reason, and it's in writing somewhere that you can access, not like in a payer contract that, is 2,500 pages somewhere tucked away in a benefit drawer. It's like,
that only the attorney understands.
Exactly.
There you go. I'm like, no.
It's Greek. It's true. And so I appreciate that about the government payers. And, that's the one thing about these other countries that have like single payer systems, because they get a little bit of that, the taste of clarity, where we don't have that with our commercial payers, for sure. So tell me, what kind of most important habits, you mentioned earlier about discipline. What else, what other kind of habits do you recommend for someone who wants to become an expert biller or be considered as an expert?
I think that being involved with all of the government emails that are coming through, because now we have technology, we have websites. Enroll yourself with the Noridian website to get all of the updates that are coming up, the state as well. Form relationships with, like, we have relationships with IPAs here in San Diego. So the provider relations reps, they used to have a lot more, but since the pandemic, they scaled down on that and people work from home. But form relationships with the payer representatives, and then this way they'll help you, because I'll tell you one thing, that they have a tough job too, and we know how hard it is. I actually did have a job processing claims with Cigna when I first got into it, and I hated it. I just didn't like it. I was not into processing claims. So
Yeah.
I think that when you have that relationship, they'll tell you who to send the claims to so that they can prioritize your claims to get paid. So that's definitely something too that I did. I developed a strong network in San Diego.
Yes. That's one thing I appreciate too about like the way that you've structured, like getting your roots in your city and being really present, knowing the provider reps, really getting to understand. I mean, I wish that there were still more provider reps. We don't have them in the commercial spaces as much anymore, but it's like, it was such a gift when you got to know, your local provider reps well. They know your name, their email, their phone number, whatever, and you can be able to make a phone call. Something isn't set up right, like something, you need to get something fixed so that the credentialing goes through and your claims get paid. Things that usually they're done still by one person. We just don't have a connection to those people, which is so annoying. But it's true, like you said, those folks that are still reps, they have to deal with the bureaucracy too, and they're the ones who are stuck in the middle, and they're dealing with us as angry providers and provider reps and vendors that are like, why are you doing that? And so, they do have a really hard job. So absolutely,
they do, but they need the doctors to be in their network, right? Because this is what they're selling. They're selling their health plans. So they need to see that they have all these doctors in the network. So always remember that the insurance companies need you more than you need them. Okay. Yeah. You have to let them, okay, we'll get you some more doctors in the network, but this is the kind of contracts and these are the type of relationships that we want, and keep that relationship open.
Right. Yeah. And use the data. Most providers don't use the information. They've been around, 15, 20 years in the same area serving patients, and they don't have the facts there to present for negotiation. It's like, you got all the information you need. You've got the power. You just need to use it and leverage it. So good. Ashley has a good question here. What's the best advice for someone that wants to work at home remotely? She's making moves to do that now since she's had at least 2 years of billing. I don't know, Blanca, do you feel like you could speak to that question?
The best advice if you want to work from home is to have a private space that's away from what's happening at home. And you make sure you tell your family that when you're in that space, that's your work. Mm-hmm. So there's got to be, respect and discipline and structure, because a lot of times when I first started working from home, and that's because I downsized. There was 1 year that I had to downsize. I had to learn that once I'm downstairs, I'm at work. I still have to get up and shower and get dressed as if I'm going to the office. You still have to do that, because if you don't do that, then it's not going to make you feel good throughout the day.
So true. That was a mindset thing for me too. And I'll probably say that as like greatest advice is treat it as if you are going to the office. Mm-hmm. Like, even if you choose, and those of you who are interested in doing starting your own billing company or servicing your own clients, you have to have the same level of respect for yourself, if not more, and your business and what you're about to do in your work environment as you would as if you were going to the office and being present, fully present. So that means like no TV on, no trying to wash clothes while you're doing you are at work.
Yes, you're at work. Yeah, and that took me a while, because I was over there. Oh, I saw that the dishes needed to be done. Oh, I went upstairs and now I'm going to go do the laundry. And I was like, oh yeah, no. So that's discipline once again.
Yeah, you can chore your way away, like your day away. You can, there's endless chores. There's endless things that
the house work is never done, never finishes. That's always ongoing. Yeah. But remember that you have to give yourself a timeline. Like, like now we have cell phones that you can put timers, in 2 hours, I got to finish this task in 2 hours. So time yourself. And that's make a list the night that tonight, that tomorrow morning, I'm going to start these 10 first things, and the 10 first things are going to generate revenue for me. I always say that whatever you're going to do is going to generate revenue.
Yes. Right? Focus on the things that are going to generate money.
Yeah, that are going to generate money. The same thing with meeting with people. What are we going to accomplish? Are we going to go make money?
Exactly. What are we talking? Or why, if not, why are we on this call? Right? Like what's the? It's true. It's so true. Sometimes you have to refocus people. But even in the larger organizations, as we both well know, you end up with these meetings after meetings after meetings. They're like, is it even productive? What are we really doing here?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ashley said she's got a kindergartner going to school in person, preparing home office. Yep. Yeah, I think you'll do, when you're working for someone remotely, as a biller, you need to show that you are disciplined as well. From home, a lot of companies still haven't figured out how to manage their people from home, which is why you see so many of them returning back to a work environment, because they don't know how to properly basically control their team or stay connected to them. So be as visible as you can, which means like you got to be checking your email frequently, making sure that you are responding to whatever means of communication your boss needs you to respond to, if it's text or chat or whatever. Just stay plugged in and make sure they see that you're visible, and whatever targets they put out there for you, you better be meeting them every single day, every hour, whatever that is. Stay focused and disciplined, like Blanca said. I get that's a good question. If those of you who have other questions, feel free to put those in the comments below. I'm going to ask a couple more here for Blanca. So what tips do you have for folks that are interested in starting a medical billing business?
I think that one of the tips that I would say is to do your research. What type of physicians do you have there? I mean, I did a lot of door knocking. I went into medical facilities and I went around and gave my brochure. But I first looked to see, what type of practice they have. So research, what do you like? Do you like to do just cardiology? Do you like primary care? What is what you're going to enjoy the most? Radiology, oncology, and so I would say do your research on exactly what it is that you feel is going to make you feel good about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and what you're going to have to offer, and how much it's going to cost you. What's it going to be your overhead? Now that we get to work from home, because we have a lot more technology, before we didn't. So you don't have to go out and rent space in a commercial building. But you are going to have to invest in a great phone system, a computer system, a software package. There's so many software packages out there too. So it's actually, I think now it's a lot more reasonable to start a billing service. Before I had to go buy a server. I had 2 servers. We don't have to do that anymore.
Gotta keep a space for that. Yeah. All of the paper, all of the envelopes, the stamps,
the envelopes, supplies, which is something that you do sell to your client. You're not going to spend anything on supplies. You're not going to spend on a employee that you're responsible for workman's comp, the liability, the payroll. She calls in sick. Who's going to do it? But those are the things that you now have to do.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And that's 100%. Like, I think that's something to remember. Those of you who are thinking about starting a company, like if you intend on growing past or beyond you at some point, there are a lot of other things that go into it. So it's really important to understand what business ownership looks like and where you want your business to stop, because some people are so happy with just a solopreneur business. You just want to have a couple of clients and whatever that number is as far as the volume and revenue that you need coming into your business. Great. But if you feel like you want to actually start a business, you've got to remember you've got people you now have to manage. You've got to have the HR. You've got to have all those parts. Doesn't matter what size it is. And if you're in a kind of state like California, right, Blanca? We've got to have a lot of extra HR stuff there.
A lot of extra HR stuff and insurance.
Yeah. That's there's a lot of things to consider, a lot of considerations. So you mentioned there, I'm interested to know, like, how did you decide on your ideal clients, like when you first started?
You know what? When I was working for Sharp, I worked with primary care for a very long time, and then I worked with OBGYN. And I think that when I met this one doctor, was gastroenterologist. They're all pretty much the same concept, but specialty was easier for me, the specialist, because you have low volume, higher dollars. So that's how I knew, I figured it out, how I was going to set up my business, because I didn't want to have this huge office, all these employees, even though I did end up growing at one point. But in the very beginning, I wanted to have more control because I was learning, right? And I was going through some baby steps as far as, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to continue to do this? And so I think that's that's why I said, you know what, single specialty providers is a lot easier to manage
Mm-hmm.
than having to go deal with larger groups. Plus, I always looked at what is the setup of that client? Is it best for them to have it in-house or come with me? So I used to always kind of analyze both of what was happening with the client. I would always recommend that they keep it in-house because I wasn't set up to have a large group of physicians in my office. So I would set it up in-house. So I do consulting hours
to help them get it going, right? And I think it's real. I'm with you that I believe there are a lot of types of either size of practices or specialty types where it is better to have billing in-house. Not in all instances, obviously, but there are some where there's just a lot of consultations that take place, financial consultations with patients and things like that you're really going to want to leverage your billers, your people on the ground to potentially engage with patients. So yeah, I love it. So tell me, when it comes to expert billers, so you and I both have gone through the same evolution a little bit of like, well, there's not a lot of great folks in the marketplace. We should try to educate and develop our own so we can make sure that we've got more people. So, because it's like people have experience and then sometimes they've got education that comes from a textbook. And the most frustrating thing is some of the stuff that they teach in these programs are like, most of the stuff, we'll say this, totally insignificant to what we do here as billers, right? So tell me a little bit about how you kind of navigated through deciding on what you now do to educate billers or create new billers.
So what I do is we formed a career path. I look at the applicants because we're right now also hiring. And, I definitely do recommend that they have some sort of schooling, either they're medical administrative assistants or they took a course in billing because they have to, first learn the basics, right? You've got to learn your basics, medical terminology, and understanding the coding, the books, because ICD-10 and, the CPT codes. But I think that working side by side and having a career path and then asking them, how do you see yourself a year or 2 years from now? And what do you best like doing? And then I do working interviews. Okay. So I'll have the applicant come in and they can work for me for 4 hours while I explain a task or two. And that way I'll know for sure that they are into technology because I have hired people that get scared when you're having to go into the email. So I do working interviews. Yeah, because they say, oh, I have, their resume has all these skills but once you sit them down and then that's how you get to know them. And I pay them for the 4 hours that they're there.
Yeah, and it is true. It's an eye opener, and it's such a hard thing when they've already committed to working with you, and you've hired them on, and for you only to find out like that they're not ready for anything in the business.
Technology especially. I don't know, and even younger folks. I'm like, wait, you're into social media. You're into, some of that stuff I can't figure out. But when you come in, you give them a keyboard and a computer and all these different programs you have to get into. You have to get into the EHR system. You have to get into the patient accounting system. You have to now go into your shirt file. You have to call the patient portal system. You have to go in there. So you have all these, systems you have to go into to find out if that claim got paid. They have to multitask and they have to be ready and not scared. And so that's super important.
It is. And it is true.
Technology.
And you can tell that so quickly. Those of you who, are curious how we figure it out. I mean, at the moment that someone sits down at a computer and starts messing around, you can kind of tell just based on how they maneuver, we'll say, through the system. Do they know Availity? Do they know these systems? What their local Medicaid system, like, are they even aware of how to look for pay? It's silly, but some people don't know how to use Google properly. Like how do you find out if a payer has a portal? Like sometimes you just got to look it up, and that's all researched. All of those skills, like being curious and like the private investigator that you mentioned earlier, you got to be able to, keep digging and digging and digging. And it's all just staying curious.
Take initiative. Don't be shy. Take initiative because you're not going to always have someone there to tell you what to do. Take lots of notes. We now record our trainings So when we're sitting down, thanks to you, Jasmine, you brought that to the table with us, and Ernie loves that. And that's great. I mean, who would have thought,
So good.
trainings, because we have to not repeat ourselves.
Okay. You're like, just refer to the training. Like, it's such a gift. You're like, I'm sorry, did you look at the training video before you asked me?
And in the training videos is, you're looking at someone, before you have to read something. I mean, that's boring to me. I hate reading. I only read stuff that I have to read because I have to collect money.
Same. But, that's why you and I are not coders. We're like, leave that to the coders. Like, I'm not reading all that.
No.
Yeah, it's so true. I love it. And I think like it's such a gift, even and those of you who are like, wondering what we're talking about there. Like, it's the training material. Like, you have to be willing to like consume and learn and relearn when it's available to you. And if you're training, like you were talking earlier, Ashley, about working remotely, if you get trained to work remotely for a company and they don't offer to record the training, you should ask them, can I record this? Because you don't want to be stuck with trying to figure it out, having to try to figure out who to reach out to remotely to ask the question and all those things. And there's a lot of companies that don't. I'm still surprised, like after, everybody being Zoomified or whatever, everybody's using Zoom, but there's still a lot of companies that don't leverage training videos. And it's such a gift, because I'm the same when it comes to SOPs. Yes, we'll write it out, but for us, it's more like a checklist versus like just a quick thing versus like a full detailed procedure in that way, because most people don't want to read it. Most of us don't want to look at that.
You're going to get bored. And I was always the type of person that I love being trained as hands-on. Like, okay, probably because I was inpatient way back then, super impatient, and I wanted to get the things done quickly. So I always learned that pictures mean 1,000 words. Number one, it's like, okay, let's draw it out, because I may not be explaining myself correctly.
Right. Yes. And you're not impatient anymore? When did that change? Just teasing. I love it. Okay, so Nanette asked a question. We're going to take like another question, and then we're going to wrap up here because it's getting late. Do you make more money, the same amount, depending on the practice? Like, I'm going to show this. There we go. Okay. Do you make more money like with a cardiologist compared to physical therapy? You're saying yes. Is there more money?
Yes.
Nanette, for sure. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Cardiology is a good money-making client for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't do physical therapy billing. I leave that in-house.
Yeah. And you can look at, if you guys aren't sure, like what the average reimbursement per visit is by specialty, like what, and it's really going to depend upon the dollar amount, the value of services that they can bill. Right. So just some of that has to do with more complexity. Like Blanca was mentioning earlier, surgeons, right. They get paid more because what they're doing is a lot more complex. Right. So not to say that physical therapists don't, spend a lot of time and effort in learning in their craft, but, they also, those of you who've taken training, you understand a little bit of how their liability might be priced, right? You understand how Medicare and CMS prices their reimbursement, right? It all comes into it. What their insurance costs go into what they get paid, like it's because their liability is higher. Right. So a surgeon gets reimbursed more because they're a lot more liable. They can really kind of do some serious damage. Right. So their insurance costs are higher. Their overhead is higher as well. So, there's just a lot of things to consider versus a physical therapist, their overhead it can be a lot less. Right. And the likelihood of them.
Right. And the payer mix too. Physical therapy, you're going to probably get a lot of work comp.
Oh, for sure.
You want to deal with work comp? I don't want to deal with work comp. Work comp is just labor intensive. It still is.
I just had this conversation because it's like workers' compensation. Well, personal injury payers, so like any accident carriers and all that, workers' comp are both in the same. They are, the only thing that they're good for is that you can call an adjuster still and have a conversation with someone over the phone.
When they answer the phone.
Yeah, because like years ago, we used to be able to do that, right, Blanca? Like you could call an insurance and talk to an adjuster. You talk to, now we talk to a customer service person who sends an email, basically.
Right.
We play telephone. It's like, here, let me explain to you my issue.
Right.
And then you
Yeah.
translate it to the adjuster, and it's
Right.
all Greek to everybody. They don't know what to do. But yeah, the workers' comp and PI, those carriers still function like they were in the early 90s, we'll say, because they've got some technology. But you're mailing claims, you're sending notes, you're doing all the stuff.
Postage is expensive now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's incredible to me how many of them still require, they won't even take faxes. They still require everything mailed.
Right. They still require everything, notes, everything. And then they'll still deny.
Yep, exactly. They'll still deny at the end of the day. Yep. So this is great. So I'm so excited to just have you here and have this conversation, Blanca. I want to talk a little bit more about your program and just to find out what information you want to share with our viewers about the training that you are offering and potentially that the career path and how people could kind of learn a little more about that if they're interested. And yeah.
Well, what we started to do this year is we started working with a nonprofit adult school here in Calexico, and we're doing the training remotely. So I kind of broke up the trainings. The first initial trainings had to do with videos, right? We did videos on, well, first of all, we talked about the life of a claim, and they were already taking their courses with their books, with their, other classes, but I was considered the lab. So I did a lot of videos. I also did towards the end, I had them come into the office and had them do some practice, how to set up a client in the system, how to set up insurances in the system, how to do registration. So, we started it from, okay, let's introduce you now to these videos and what is ICD-10 and, the codes and, what's payable, what's not payable. We did the CPT one too. So I found a lot of really neat videos on YouTube. Right. So I'm like, okay, because everybody's like, how are we going to do this? I go, this is how we're going to do it. And while they're watching the video, you can still work.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's true. You get to double dip there a little bit. You're like, I'm gonna watch this. I love it. You need to make more. You need to make some videos, Blanca. We need to get you. Yeah, we need to get you. We'll have to get Blanca recording some videos.
Yeah, I have great staff that I think I had Ernie, I had Irma, there was 4 of us that did the class, and they loved it. As a matter of fact, I'm hiring one of them.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, that's the best. I think when you, and this is the beauty of us offering training, is that you can kind of hand select. You see the promise. And those of you, if you're new to billing and you're taking training or something, you need to show up 100%.
You have to
realize,
you have to be hungry. I was always hungry for money.
Yeah.
So if you're hungry for money, you're going to be an excellent biller and collector.
Yep, exactly. For because it echoes into the client. You're like, you see those dollars and you want to fight for them. You're like, I want you to get paid, doc. So I love it. So any last, how would people want to how would people get in touch with you if they wanted to reach
they can actually reach me through my email. That's the best way to get a hold of me. I do go through all of my emails at bmorales@scmdservices.com.
Excellent. And well, what I'll do, folks, those of you who are watching this on the replay, I'm going to have it posted in the comments below, or not the comments, in the description below. So if you have questions that come up to you, we check the comments all the time. So feel free to drop your questions. And I'm in touch with Blanca, so happy to ask her questions if something comes to mind. And we'll certainly, maybe we'll be back on here again, Blanca.
Yes, for sure.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys so much for your time. And you guys, so the next couple of weeks, we have a few interviews like back to back for these next couple of weeks coming up. So just stay tuned for anything of the post. If you're watching this on any of the platforms, all of them will have the sharing of the guests that are going to come on. So feel free to make suggestions of people and things that you want to hear about. Let me know in the comments what you want to learn about. If there's someone that you want me to bring on, a particular topic you want us to discuss, I would love to bring some of our other expert billers and business owners back on to have conversations. All right, friends, have a beautiful rest of this week and weekend. Thank you so much, Blanca, for your time.
Thank you, Jasmine. It's great doing this with you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.